Hello, fellow citizens. My name is Jess. For a number of years, I've watched the actions of our national government and have seen how we have drifted from our nation's founding principles. This is the first of a series of videos dedicated to restoring those principles. Our nation, the United States of America, was founded on a number of fundamental principles, such as the rule of law, individual liberty, and the consent of the governed. Principles enshrined in our founding documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. I call these founding principles our first principles. When elected officials take their oaths of office at every level of government in the United States, local, state, and national, they all pledge to uphold and defend the U.S. Constitution. But sadly, what we have today are way too many oath breakers and not enough oath keepers. Too many public officials have abandoned our first principles or have never understood them at all. Is this totally the fault of our public officials? Are they the only ones to blame? No, they are not. They reflect the values as well as the shortcomings of those who have elected them. And many of us lack understanding of our first principles because we have not been taught them. We as a nation have drifted from these first principles, so eloquently set forth in our Declaration of Independence. I'll talk about just one of these, the principle that God, not government, is the giver of rights. The Declaration of Independence says this in its second paragraph, and I quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Who gave man his rights? The government? No, God gave man his rights, and no government has the legitimate authority to take these rights away. Government didn't give us our rights, and government should not attempt to take away our rights. When God made man, He put within him the power to exercise his free will, his power to make choices in this life. Our rights come from the Creator, God, not from other men. The Declaration of Independence was the first civil document that recognized God as the giver of rights. Before the time of the American Revolution, when our founders published the Declaration of Independence, proclaiming this first principle, most men and women looked to a king to grant them their rights. They believed the king was appointed by God to rule over them and would, in turn, bestow rights according to the will of the king. The alternative to what was called the divine right of kings was rule by force. People looked to a powerful military leader to give them their rights. So, leaders throughout history have ruled by right or might, but neither kind of leader truly had the power to give men their liberty, because liberty comes from God. The next phrase of the Declaration says this, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. End of quote. The purpose of government is to secure our rights, and that government can do fairly well if the government is administered by just and wise individuals. Government can only give that which it has first taken from someone else, such as tax revenue, which government is supposed to use to protect our life, liberty, and property. Government does not make anything. That is not its purpose. Its purpose is to secure our rights. Government cannot give anyone rights because rights come from God. One of the great challenges before us is to educate our families, friends, and neighbors about our first principles. The men and women who built America understood and lived by these principles, and they established the freest and most prosperous nation on earth. Today, our nation is in peril because we have turned our backs on these first principles. George Mason, the great statesman who refused to sign the Constitution because it did not have a Bill of Rights, wrote the Virginia Declaration of Rights. This was Virginia's Bill of Rights. Section 15 of the Virginia Declaration of Rights reads as follows, quote, that no free government or the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any people but by a firm adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, frugality, and virtue, and by frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. End of quote. Fellow citizens, we must restore our first principles. Now is the time for citizens to rise up and reclaim our nation by speaking up, by educating others, by communicating with public officials, and by making better choices when we vote. It is up to you and me and all who love freedom to do everything in our power to restore our government, especially our national government, to its proper role as the guardian of our liberties. Thank you for listening.